If someone offered you delicious-looking food and you can't even imagine saying no thank you, even if you aren't hungry, then you've got to hear today's coaching session. You are listening to Weight Loss Made Real, and this is episode 234. I'm your host, Master Weight Loss Coach and author, Cookie Rosenblum. Today and every Tuesday, I'm here to be your coach and your guide to help you end your emotional eating and lose that extra weight. So if you just found me, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. Here is where we work together to end your emotional eating and that habitual overeating, and this is the main focus of all the work I do. This is weight loss for the thinking woman, that's you, who's smart enough to know what doesn't work and willing to dig a little deeper to make lasting change. Here is where coaching meets psychology and psychology meets brain science, and this is where your problem ends. Let's jump right into today's session. Today, I want to help you imagine what it would feel like to see appealing looking, delicious looking, yummy food and turn it down if you're not hungry. Now, many of you cannot imagine doing that. You think that the food holds a certain power over you and that it depends what the food is. So if these are your thoughts, it might sound something like, well, I could never say no to chocolate, for example, or maybe for you it's chips or French fries or whatever your own special foods are. But I want you to imagine just how empowered you would feel if you could turn down food if you weren't hungry. And imagine how in charge of yourself you would feel. Because, of course, that's your goal, right? For you to be in control, in charge of your eating, of course. So let's start here. What happens when someone offers you food? Do you always just take it and eat it without thinking about it? When do you say yes? And when do you say no, thank you? And what's behind you saying yes or no? And I want to know this. Have you ever thought about it at all? Or do you just dive right in? Maybe you always say yes and eat it, at least some of it. Maybe you planned it, but you know that sometimes there's no way to plan for everything that we have the opportunity to eat. Maybe it was what we call in the Freedom Group an unexpected eating opportunity. They come up often, don't they? So how do you decide whether to eat the food that's offered to you? If you're one of those people who almost always says yes, please, to any food that appeals to you, with or without hunger, I want to take a look with you today at why you might be doing this. And when we're done, we're going to look at what you might consider changing if you want to show up in this life as a natural eater, making good decisions for yourself no matter what the food is and no matter how good it looks. So, when someone offers you food, do you make a decision by whether you like that food? Or does whether you're hungry factor into your decision at all? Or maybe you decide because of a social pressure that you feel or a family pressure, and you think to yourself, well, everyone else is eating. And I also want you to think about whether you're even aware that you're making this decision, because it just seems like the food is there and the next thing you know, it's in your mouth and you're eating it. And it seems like there's no space in between. Overeaters make the decision to eat food offered to them using all kinds of criteria. And here's some of them. One is the food itself. And they think, gee, I don't know when I'm going to have this opportunity again. Or you might think, I love this so much, it's my favorite. Look how good it looks and it smells delicious. And if this is you, if you make the eating decisions, not whether you're hungry, but based on the food itself, what you're doing is you're giving your power to the food. and you see yourself as a victim, like, hey, I don't have any choice. It just depends on what that food is. I have no control if it's this certain type of food. I want you to imagine walking through your day with your fingers crossed, hoping that no one offers you something that you really like if you're not hungry, because that kind of thinking lets you feel powerless. Well, if someone offers me that, there's no way I'm able to say no. Now, some people who eat what they're offered, whether they're hungry or not, use the criteria of who they're with to help them make that decision. Who made it for them? You know that you can create guilty feelings that urge you to eat something that someone made for you. Think about the last time you did that. Well, she made this especially for me, and I know she put a lot of care and effort and love into it. How could I say no? I'd be hurting her feelings. I'd be insulting her. I can't say no. I have to eat it. It might also depend on what the occasion is. After all, you know this phrase, hey, it's the holidays. We're celebrating. It's family. We're all together. So when you think these things, it makes you feel powerless about saying no. You have fears about saying no because you might be worried about who will be upset with you if you turn a food down. Or maybe it's because you just don't want to be different. You don't want to be the only one not eating. You don't want to draw attention to yourself, and you might worry that you'll have to explain to other people why you're not eating something. Right? We just want to blend into the background and not have anybody say, that's all you're eating? Why don't you try this? Why are you turning that down? Another way that overeaters decide whether to eat something or not is they think about how they're going to feel if they say no to the food. And they have all kinds of thoughts and feelings of fear about being deprived if they don't eat it. It wouldn't be fair, right? It's not right. Why shouldn't I get to eat whatever I want? This is a really big and common reason that you might think you're not able to say no to any food with any person in any situation at all. You might be thinking up thoughts that have a little bit of fear of missing out in them. What you might miss that others are getting to have. Poor you, right? You have lots of thoughts about life just not being fair for you. And those thoughts create you feeling a little bit sorry for yourself, thinking things like, why me? Why can't I just eat like everyone else? Now, in the moment, these thoughts can make you feel like you have no choice, because you don't want to feel bad, you don't want to feel left out, you don't want to feel isolated, and those feelings are so strong, they're going to lead you to say yes to a food that you're not hungry for. And finally, the other big reason for giving in to food offered to you, even when you're not hungry, is that you might just be justifying eating the food with thoughts like these. Well, this is special. This is unusual. I'll just eat something else later if I don't eat this now, so I may as well get it over with and eat it. You might tell yourself that, hey, it's no big deal, doesn't matter, or have thoughts like, who cares? What's the big deal? I'll just start again tomorrow. This little bit is not going to hurt me. You know that you might have a million different thoughts and reasons and justifications for eating that food, but none of them are the real reason for you to say yes to eating anything. Using any one of those as a reason to eat food offered to you, it won't help you end your overeating habits. It won't help you reach any goals that you have about eating. It won't help you feel good about your choices. It will likely leave you feeling too full and probably a little mad at yourself later. And you're going to go around in that circle wondering why you always do this to yourself. And you know where that leaves you, right? Stuck. It will keep you feeling like natural eating is for other people, but it's just beyond you. You can't do it. But it's not really a mystery, is it? We just talked about all those reasons that go on in your mind that let you say yes when you're not hungry. But if this is what you do when you're offered food and you're not hungry in that moment, there's a result of that, right? There's a consequence. There's a result of everything we do. And when you eat food that you're not hungry for, the result is that you're eating more than your body needs. And when you do that over and over again, your body simply stores the food as extra weight. You know that. Your mind thinks you want it, but your body doesn't need it. And when it comes to eating, we listen to our body. If our body doesn't need it, we say no thank you. So the extra weight, the result of doing that again and again and again, is that what you really want? I know in the moment you think it is, but of course it's not. You don't want that. This kind of thinking is very common with people that are in the habit of overeating because they think that they're powerless over food if the food looks good to them. Or that food that's offered in those social situations we talked about when everyone else is eating it. Or when you're tired or stressed or feeling some other way that causes you, by habit, to turn to food. So you know, if you've ever done this, that overeaters have all kinds of reasons they say yes to food being offered, even when they're not hungry. Now remember, in the work that we're doing here together, your goal is to become a natural eater. And natural eaters have one big reason for eating that same food. Natural eaters, first and foremost, check in. It takes an instant. They check in to see if they're hungry. Not if they could fit it in because they aren't too full. That's when you're not really hungry, but you say, yeah, I guess I could eat that. That's different than being hungry. But they ask if they're hungry and if there is an emptiness in their body that's sending them the signal asking for food. Hunger is the only reason that natural eaters eat. And of course, they and you will get pleasure from eating when you're hungry, but the pleasure you get when you're hungry is a good kind of pleasure. The pleasure you get when you're hungry is so much more than you get from eating something without hunger. Eating when you're hungry makes the food actually taste better. So what can you learn from this discussion? Your goal as a natural eater, and you want to start thinking of yourself that way, even if you're not there yet, because that's what you're working for. Your goal as a natural eater is to make every eating decision after you ask your body this. This food looks good, but do I need it right now? I don't want you to make the mistake of asking, do you want it? Because the answer most often is going to be yes. We all want things that taste good because they're pleasure, right? So we're never going to say, no, I don't really want it. Of course you want it. The question is, do you need it? Does your body need it? As you learn to do this, you're going to see all those other reasons that you make up in your mind that we talked about as unhelpful habits. All those thoughts that we just talked about led you to where you are today. We are all the result of all of our habits. Some habits are great, and you like the results that you have. You like certain parts of your life. You created those. And some feel great only in the moment, like eating when you're not hungry, but in the big picture, they don't give you the results that you really want in your life. So ask yourself, are you happy with where you are regarding your eating? Is your way of eating helping you reach your goal? Is it helping you to feel good about yourself and not beat yourself up later after just a few minutes of enjoyment? I know that you can't plan for every little bite of food that comes into your day, but you can plan for how you will handle those unexpected eating opportunities. So are you really powerless to say no to food being offered? Is the food in charge? Or are the people that you're with in charge? Neither is. You are always in charge. You just might need practice in exercising being in charge of yourself. What if the food wasn't your main interest? What would you think then? What if you had just eaten that same food being offered and were no longer in the mood for it? What would you say then? Would you say yes or no to having some of it? What would you do? What if you didn't like the food that's being offered to you? Would it be a temptation to eat it just because it was offered? I'm guessing not, right? What if you were allergic to that food? Probably you would not want to touch it. That seems so obvious. But those are all decisions made on thoughts that you have about that food or that situation. That means that your response to food can be changed by changing what you think. If you've been listening to my podcast for any length of time with these coaching sessions, you already know that. So I want you to try it out this week. Notice your eating this week. Notice when food is offered to you and by whom. And be on the lookout for all of those unplanned eating opportunities. Notice the thoughts that go through your mind. Are they excuses for saying yes, even though you aren't hungry at the time? Are you thinking like an overeater or a natural eater? Are you thinking thoughts that give you permission to eat what's being offered because you've always done it that way? Or are you thinking like a natural eater who has checked in to see if there's any hunger before eating anything, no matter what the food is, no matter what time of day it is, no matter the social situation, no matter who's offering? That is your goal. And finally, which do you want to be, and what do you need to practice next? I want you to think about this week. That is it for this subject in our coaching session today, turning down food when you're not hungry. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me, and thank yourself for giving yourself this little gift of time during your day or evening. If you'd like to connect with me on a deeper level and you're not yet in the Freedom Group, come join me in my free Facebook group where we talk about this podcast each week, and my team and I will help you take action steps that we talk about right here. The link to the group is in the show notes of this episode, or you can go to Facebook and search for the Weight Loss Made Real group, the same name as this podcast. We'll ask you a few short questions, and then we'll just admit you right into the group. I hope to see you back here next week, where we will continue to work on your emotional eating and that habitual overeating step by step until they both become something in the past, something that you used to do. We both know that is your ultimate goal. So for now, this is your Coach Cookie reminding you that as you search for answers, keep it real, just like you. And I'll see you next week.